Hi, everybody. This is day 1116. 1116. Um, did a lot of walking lately, and it gives you time to reflect, and it gives you time to look at all the evidence again in a fresher light. And so, I have some things to share with you. You know, let's make sure I'm on Facebook. I make sure that all of you can hear because this is breaking news again. Okay, it's breaking news again. Every day is breaking news, and every day there's several times that news breaks. That's how fast this is going now, and um, and I'm not going to lie to you. It's really tough. Even though um, it's good news that things are breaking, but it doesn't make it easy because it's absolutely horrifying that Team Find Richard Halliday has to do this. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. That Team Find Richard Halliday has to do this, that we have been really left to do this by ourselves without the help of our trillion-dollar government um, smorgasbord of agencies and offices that have forgotten their oaths. Now we're finding out, I think it's Ann Vandersteel, she reported that several of our officials in the highest levels have not even taken the oath of office, that they have refused to take the oath of office. And, that explains a lot. And it's like they want all the benefits, they want all the privileges of this country, of the jobs and the taxes and the criminal syndicates that they create by infiltrating into the system and abusing the system. And of course, Richard's case is no different. It's a really good example of that with Leilani Hart, a key suspect in this case, manipulating our system, manipulating. And, we have questions now and put in a criminal complaint to look into the immigration status because there seems to be an issue with her immigration status. We absolutely have confirmed that she wasn't born in the United States or the territories or anything that's controlled by the United States. And so, what is going on, right? Um, what is going on? And I know from my family experience because my mother was born in Germany, and she came to the United States, to White Sands, New Mexico, and she learned English by ironing soldiers' uniforms and being in front of the TV watching daytime television like General Hospital or As the World Turns or whatever, and learning English while she was learning um, the history of our country, the documents of our country. And my dad, who was working several jobs because, he was enlisted, um, two children, and, they had to pay bills at that time. The military didn't have the benefits, they didn't have the pay. Um, and I know that service members are suffering today, but my dad worked as a bartender, he worked as a janitor while he was also an NCO in the military. And so he would come home. My mom would tell us these stories, and he would have to listen to her repeat the presidents of the United States and the Pledge of Allegiance and the preamble and all these things that she was going to be tested to get her citizenship. And she did pretty quickly. So I know because of my family history and because of Richard being born in Poland and everything that we had to go through to adopt him officially and get his birth certificate, and then with the birth certificate to get his passport, to get him naturalized, and then to get him an American passport. And, um, because my dad picked us up at Delaware, we flew over um, through a Mac flight, and my dad and my mom picked us over with the boys, um, and took us to a Denny's. That was their very first experience, breakfast at Denny's. And the waitress asked Richard and Robert what they wanted to eat for breakfast, and they were like, salad, salad. She was like, who are these children? But they, they don't do that. I mean, well, Richard is this is not easy, y'all. To go through these memories, to go through the breaking news, and to hear the deception, right? The conflicts of interest, and to have James Hart invade and Dallas Hart invade our Team Find Richard Halliday Facebook page to spew intimidation and threats and more lies, because they're just in cover up mode. Because everyone knows in Team Find Richard Halliday, and I hope they know, that I do not put things out there unless I am like 110% sure that this involves Richard's case. And I've taken heat for the COVID, for the deception of so many different things. But I'm absolutely, I go over it and over and over it. I am absolutely sure that Leilani Hart and James Hart and Dallas Hart are suspects, play a huge role in the disappearance of our son, Richard Halliday, the forced disappearance and the presumed murder of our son, Richard Halliday. And her allegations in the CID and the FBI complaint, they absolutely need to be looked at, right? They need to be investigated. But she had them notarized, okay? She had them notarized. So she wanted them out there. She wanted that to be official. She wanted people to take her seriously. She had it notarized because she wanted to tell people this is the truth as she saw it. Okay? And so James Hart and Dallas Hart, and those that were offended, need to get together and put in their name, not in Richard Halliday's name, okay? Not in the real Richard Halliday or whatever, not in Patricia Halliday's name, not Patty Cakes or anything like that, but in their name, not in Lyle Landy, not in any other persona, but in their name. They need to take this very seriously, and they need to produce the evidence that we have worked so hard to put out there that is absolutely connected with Richard's case. That's part of Richard's file. Okay? Not only do we know that Leilani Hart's allegations, her confession, her notarized criminal complaint, that's vile and vulgar. It's absolutely vile and vulgar. But there are certain nuggets in there that need scrutinizing, and that is the immigration issue. Because, and also the assault, the constant assault, the constant problems. I mean, there are so many problems in that confession. And and it doesn't clear her. It matter of fact, it implicates her. And so this seems like the desperation of something going on in that family, and it somehow involves the forced disappearance and the murder of my son, Richard Halliday. And so that's why it's out there. So the main focus of this is, where is Richard? What did they do to Richard? And what that shows you, in addition to a key witness, an officer of the court that witnessed confessions from Leilani, right? From Tavita Nusa, saying they tampered with Richard's file, right? There is bodily harm done. So, in addition, there is, if that's not enough, right? If that's not enough, and the lack of producing, my husband, he still even has his orders for when he retired. Where has anybody seen Dallas Hart produce his orders for Delta Battery 243 or Delta Battery 143, or his orders when he went to Iraq? Where are his orders? My husband had all his orders until he retired, and then he shredded them except for his retirement orders. So, you know, where is the documentation that easily Dallas Hart could produce, right, to give him, I guess, an alibi, or to show where he was and what's, because his mother, and he told me he didn't know Tavita Nusa. Well, that's not true. That's not true, because I have screenshots. Okay? I have screenshots. So, and Tavita Nusa is an important figure in all of this, because uh, he's involved in the forced disappearance. He's involved in the tampering. And he was a special agent in the CID office there at Fort Bliss. He is, you know, that's jaw-dropping. And we know that Richard is a whistleblower. And CID Special Agent Marlon Soto didn't say so. And we know that Richard had contact, right? So, but that doesn't seem to be enough. We still have to reveal even more. And we have an El Paso Police Department revelation of another incident. This one dates 5/19/2019. Okay. And, I didn't want to reveal all of this because my focus is on Richard. But what we're trying to let people know is there is a long history of crime here, not just crime, but felony crimes. Felony crimes and fraud. A long history of fraud, which is also, there's so many crimes here that it makes you dizzy, your head spins. And what that shows is a history of taking advantage of our system, of being so bold, not even caring that you're committing these felony crimes. Who is backing up the Hart family so that they can be so brazen to continue year after year after year after year with felony crimes? Because I know that today, in the last 5-10 years, we have almost, not by my wanting, we have almost normalized pedophilia. But when they got married, when these troubles started 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I know they've been married 30 years, let's say 28 years ago. Let's say, well, it started happening when by Lalani's allegations, it started happening when the boys reached the age of 7. Like that was some kind of, you know, rite of passage or something. So the problems happened when the boys reached the age 7, and we know through information that James was also a victim at the age of 7. There's a long history going back. Okay, these are from Lalani's allegations, not mine. And what I'm trying to let people know, and really Major General Eisenhower, who we did receive a response back from our criminal complaint against James Hart, primarily James Hart. There was also the immigration issues with Lalani Hart in that criminal complaint. And we did receive uh, today a response back from General Eisenhower acknowledging that he received that criminal complaint with the concerns of the immigration issues. And so that was a positive note. It was a positive note. And uh, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens because in that request is a request again, and again to Major General Eisenhower to inform him that he was not properly briefed on the situation of the banning of a key witness in Richard's case from accessing Fort Bliss, which is very important for us, being he's a judicial officer and he has authority to find out what happened to Richard in a much quicker fashion because he has that authority to access the areas and people and information. And so, of course, the retaliation was, we have the attorney's name that helped Lalani Hart, James Hart, to orchestrate this retaliation against a key witness. And this is obstruction of justice. This is a denial of due process. This is, another incident of criminal actions by the Hart family with help with an attorney. And we have the name, it's a male. We know the sister, and we know the names, and um, there's so many conflicts of interest. Okay, and we're informing with our request to Major General Eisenhower for him to understand that when a person is banned from accessing Fort Bliss, they need to be notified. There was no notification. When a person is banned from Fort Bliss, they need to be given an opportunity to tell their side to defend themselves. This was not done because there was no notification. And when a person is banned from Fort Bliss, accessing Fort Bliss, right, there needs to be an investigation, which is called a packet. They need to investigate if the allegations have any validity, right? But it seems, well, we know because Thomas Kane admitted in that letter that there was no packet, and he's never seen that before. There's no packet, and he admitted on record that he had never seen that before. For someone to get banned without a packet. So Major General Eisenhower needs to rescind, lift, whatever, get rid of the band of a key witness in Richard's case so that we can, because we have been told to investigate our son's forced disappearance and presumed murder ourselves. Whoops, that went out. Since we've been told to do that, then, we need to get on with the business, right? We need to get on with the boots on the ground inside that have authority. Now, we have an alliance inside. We have intel coming out from Fort Bliss, but an officer of the court is a very important authority to be able to help us to get the answers of what happened to Richard. And you would think that Major General Eisenhower would want the same, right? The vetting seems to not have occurred on Fort Bliss. And I know all about vetting. Everybody knows all about vetting. But it doesn't seem to have occurred on Fort Bliss. And it hasn't seemed to occurred in our son's case because of all of the conflicts of interest that I'm going to go through. But this El Paso Police Department, police investigative report, incident report, that was on May 19th, 2019 at approximately 9:33 hours. And we have the officer's number and his badge number and his unit number, was dispatched to the residence. And then we have that address of the Hart family. And it was a disturbance. And this is a little bit different. We have another one. Because Leilani was arrested. Apparently she was arrested in Hawaii. And I don't know if I'm totally going to read this, but I want to talk about that it's about fraud. It's about fraud. It is about getting loans with fraud. It is about trying to obtain credit in a fraudulent way. And now it seems that Leilani had no recourse on her claims here to the police because she was married to James Hart, who she was saying committed some financial fraud against her. And so that, I think that is not that I wanted to share that, but I want people to understand that James Hart coming out here saying these are lies, and somehow intimidating and threatening me. I'm not the one that has these El Paso police reports. And I, don't have that messy mess that is connected to the forced disappearance, presumed murder of a missing soldier. Okay? And I think that he should show a little respect here and a little humility to say, look, I have a messy family, but I'm going to get to the bottom of this and show you that I'm not involved. Because we know that Leilani is. And we know that Tavita Nusa is. And, so if Dallas wants to say he's not involved, he doesn't need to come and rescue his father. Okay? His father is a mess because this whole thing is a mess. And he should show a little humility because we're looking for Richard. We're looking for Richard 3 years, 3 years. And absolutely, his family is connected with the forced disappearance and the presumed murder of my son, of our son, of our soldier, of our Fort Bliss soldier, of our distinguished honor graduate from basic training in AIT. That's a wonderful thing for an 18-year-old to accomplish. He's so young. And we have intel saying that the command greenlit the murder of our son. And, you know, in normal circumstances, you don't want to believe that. You don't want to believe that. But then you start looking at conflicts of interest. And in this case, you have conflicts of interest in the CID. But did we miss something? Did we miss the VA? Is there conflicts of interest in the VA? Right? Because we have James Hart working in the VA right there on Fort Bliss. There's no vetting of him because let me tell you, it doesn't take much to find these reports, to find this information. There's so much of it, piles of it. So that short CID, FBI, notarized criminal complaint, confession, affidavit by Leilani Hart, that's just one little part, the tip of the iceberg of the mountains of information claiming felony crimes and fraud. Fraud. I know that that's together, but I have to pick that out because there's no vetting. He is in charge of seeing soldiers day in and day out in the VA and determining, and I'm going to tell you, there is some stuff that has been alleged that would just make you boil about what's going on at the VA. And that is the Veterans Affairs, for people that don't know what the VA is, the Veterans Affairs. And he's in charge of looking at these soldiers' health in the board, their medical board, which is very private information, and being part of the decision on what kind of disability they should get or if they should even get disability. And we know by Leilani Hart's own confession, she's 100% disabled veteran. Okay? And I know that Poche, who is in the K-tip with, making these false allegations, that he is, what the intel is telling me, 100% disabled veteran. Now, you read that story. Now, Miss Korcherga, this award-winning journalist who didn't even take 1 minute out to ask about Richard's case and what we were finding out when she was talking to me, only cared if we had help. And she didn't want us to get help. I was floored. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, look, you're putting out a story that is interfering in our son's investigation, that is leading to witness tampering, and you don't seem to care. Because if you vetted Leilani Hart or even Poche, you would know. You would know, and it would be very easy if little mama me can go through and take a little time out. This is my son's life we have here, okay? My son's life. If I can take a little time out with Team Find Richard Halliday, because I'm not doing it alone, with Team Find Richard Halliday, and search through all of this. And I want to thank everybody for sending me all these articles that show the corruption, the fraud, the waste, the abuse, the mishandling of our service members, the just egregious conduct of our highest leaders. And so my question is back to Fort Bliss. Did we miss something in the Hart family too? And I mean, every day something new comes out. The question is, who was CID's, the investigation into our son's disappearance, who was their point of contact at the VA? Okay? Because they have access to our son's medical records, to his mental health, to his entire military records. So we know that they were all being leaked. We know that people that were up to no good had information about his adoption, about his life, about everything. And some of it, a lot of it, some of it was totally false. So were they tampering with his file? Because we know through the archives what we got back that it is absolutely tampered with, that it's absolutely scrubbed, that it's absolutely sanitized, and he was promoted 2 times, one in December 2022 and then again in April 2023. You heard me right. You heard me right. So we know that his file was being tampered with and manipulated. Now, was that inside of the VA? That's my question. And who was the point of contact? It couldn't be James Hart, could it? Or did he have a, friend with benefits? Friend with benefits? That is something that we will reveal. But absolutely another conflict of interest. Because James couldn't do it. He would have to recuse himself, right? Because his wife is a suspect. Or did Marlon Soto not care? Did he not vet? Did he not vet? You had Leilani Hart bragging that she was controlling CID. So, did Marlon Soto know Leilani Hart? Yes, of course. Of course. But what's going on in the VA? What's going on with Richard's files, including his medical files? So now we have a long history, which, we have to write another letter tomorrow, right? A long history of fraud. And then we have this police. We have other documentation that, what we've given you is only the tip of the iceberg. And so, I did ban James Hart and Dallas Hart. And I hate doing that because I love Team Find Richard Halliday, communicating with them and finding out more information. But how dare they come and be intimidating and threatening and brazen when, are they living in a cloud? Because there is documentation after documentation of the felony crimes, including the pedophilia including the child porn, including um, the illegal weapons purchasing and possession, the threats on her life, um, the fraud, the uh, what is this? Forging, fraudulent forging, um, fraudulently getting loans, uh, the immigration problem, the immigration. I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know. There is a question about the immigration and taking advantage of the system and multiple wives, multiple wives. There is even Dallas told me, oh yeah, my dad has two. He's still married to Leilani Hart. Okay, in my book, that's called adultery. You know, I know that's because I am a Christian and I go by Christian morals and values, and you don't have multiple wives. You don't have multiple girlfriends, right? And in this country, though, it's still illegal and to have multiple wives. So, and that gets very expensive. You have to pay for their housing, for their vehicles, for their insurance, for their electric and, whatever, right? They're traveling, they're whatever. Um, but there is a long history. And, here, maybe I'll think about it tonight, talk to my husband about it, if I should release um, the incident number. The incident number. But I'm not going to read more of it because the point is it exists. It exists. And it's just one more. I have more. And there's piles of it. And so stop the lying. That's my point. Stop the lying and come clean. Stop it. This is my son's life. This is a soldier. Stop the lying. I know you're lying. Um, Sorry, y'all, but my goodness, to come on and threaten us, and there's things going on behind the scenes that people don't know. We don't talk about it. The vile and the vulgar, these people are sick. They are sick, and all they want to do is make the world a worse place. Well, you know what? My motto has been always the opposite. When you go somewhere, you make the world a better place. A better place. If it means picking up some trash, planting some flowers, cleaning things up, washing some dishes, caring about somebody, caring about an older person. I'm a McGuffey's person. Mary is kind to the old blind man. That's making the world a better place. That's McGuffey's. Mary is kind to the old blind man, right? This is life. It's not about sex cults. It's not about sex cults. And then that leads to fraud, waste, and abuse and felony crimes. It is a slippery slope. And, we have document after document of the slippery felony criminal slope. And that is like a whirlwind that captured Richard and led to the continuous and severe retaliation against him, which includes Clem Coward, which includes Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick, who did not do their duty. They're part of this, y'all. They're implicated in this because if they would have vetted, they would have never done that to Richard. But because somehow they're involved in this CPS and this CID, and look, the IG, oh, he never reported to the IG. Well, look, we have a conflict of interest now in the IG. So we have a conflict of interest, double conflict of interest, triple conflict of interest in the CID, probably more that I haven't counted yet. And then we have a conflict of interest in the IG. We have a conflict of interest in the JAG. We have a conflict of interest in Park University. We have a conflict of interest with the chief of security of Fort Bliss, which is a conflict of interest with CID. That's 4. And with the administrator to the CYS, with the CPS lady, with the VA, with friends with benefits. Good evening, Danielle. Thank you so much. Thank you for your prayers. Good evening, Anicia. Thank you so much. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Patty. Do you think these individuals could be the people maybe committing fraud with Richard's Social Security information? We know that Richard's Social Security number was used fraudulently. We don't know. We could know if Major General Eisenhower would lift the ban on our key witness, and we could then continue our investigation and really know what's going on, vet what's going on at Fort Bliss. We could know. Thank you, Kathleen. Hello to you too. Thank you. Thank you so much for defending us with Dallas Hart. Could Richard have been confiding with a counselor and through the VA and others had reviewed the information in the VA records and medical records? Richard was divulging private and personal information, and in turn was possible used against him. I'm telling you, he had no recourse because the CID is implicated, the IG is implicated, the VA is implicated, the unit is implicated, the chain of command is implicated, Park University is implicated, the chief of security of Fort Bliss is implicated, CPS is implicated, the administrator of CYS is implicated in this. I shouldn't say implicated. Maybe I should, because I know they have information. I know they have information. And we have $150,000. I'm going to get it somehow, somewhere. I will do it. And you know that I will. For anybody coming forth with information that will lead to finding my son, our soldier, Richard Halliday. And give us his remains so we can properly bury him. Keep that information close to your chest. I'm going to have to watch to replay. Yeah. We're in a plea to Major General Eisenhower. He has to do what's right. And he needs to start vetting. He needs to take that criminal complaint against James Hart seriously and Leilani Hart look into her immigration status. We absolutely know through her testimony that was, I don't see James Hart notarizing a testimony. I don't see Dallas Hart notarizing a testimony. I do see Leilani Hart doing it. And so she's saying he threatened her immigration status. How? That means he knows about it. And he's working at the VA with friends with benefits? And according to Leilani, not to me, and the friends with benefits is according to Leilani. And the reports are who was the point of contact for Richard's case, for Richard's investigation, for the CID in the VA. Now that's shocking, because where does the corruption, where does it stop? Because it's everywhere. It's in the chain of command, it's in the JAG, it's in the IG, it's in the CID, it's in the VA, it's at Park University, it's at, because where is the open records request, the even communication with Anna Whitehead, even a communication? This is a missing soldier. Where is the concern for our service members? And, and then just to shrug off all of the claims of years and years of sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, fraud, one felony allegation, crime allegation after the next. And this is part of Richard's file? And so this document here that we have is dated October 16th, 2020. So that means that's when we were there. Why didn't Leilani Hart come to one of our rallies? We were there. We were there on October 16th. That was 10 days before Nadal Baim, the employee of the FBI man, walks into the Dollar General and makes that stunning statement to the cashier that the FBI has been looking for Richard. You could take down the flyers. Take down the flyers because Richard has been found. The FBI were looking for him. They found him in Mexico. And then we get intel giving us an autopsy report from Mexico. Fragmented remains. And the Major General Eisenhower, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe needs to be arrested. Absolutely needs to be arrested. Because he did not tell us our son was a whistleblower. He believed what was coming out of the VA without vetting the VA, without vetting and saying, oh, wow, James Hart works at the VA and his wife is a key suspect in this case. Maybe we need to vet a little bit. Has anybody manipulated the file? Because we have an officer of the court saying that Richard's file is being tampered with. Maybe I need to look at my DES and say, hey, we have information that video footage and surveillance footage has been deleted and tampered with. Let's vet him, Thomas Kane. Absolutely, that falls on the feet of Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, who received a 3rd star for this cover-up. So that means that the Senate Arms Committee That means the House Arms Committee. That means General McConville. Only something like this could happen, and we're uncovering it and uncovering it and uncovering. Only something like this can happen from the highest levels, the top levels, to preserve the name of the U.S. Army or something. I mean, you know, I think the same guy, the same leader that decided to have co ed barracks is the same person that said, we'll just cover up the grotesque murder of Richard Halliday. We'll just try to do that, mislead that family. I think the same idiot did that. Could it be? Or maybe just the same zeitgeist spirit, right? And I know, y'all, this is I have to regroup myself, walk that narrow way, and be calm. And be calm. I'm not allowed to grieve. I'm not allowed to be angry because that clouds. I have to stay calm and stay humble, because that's how we're going to find Richard. But I tell you, no immunity anymore. I can tell you that much calmly. No immunity anymore. The amount of fraud, waste, and abuse and absolute harm, daily endangering our service members, our young volunteer sons and daughters, our most valuable assets. And they call them that, and they daily. This is Lieutenant General Bernabe. This is, the leadership, the spirit. They are daily endangering our people, our country. This is a national security threat. Because if they can decide to obstruct justice and to be so brazen to think they could get away with it, to put a family through 3 years of hell, and I have it daily recorded on these live streams, daily, and to use military operations against us. Yes. How do I know they've used military operations? Because they were smearing Richard behind the scenes in the law enforcement community. So much so that from the guard mount, they were hypnotizing the MPs and to not look for Richard. And you know why they could get away with that? Because they have assaulted our soldiers so much, and there's so much crime because there's so little vetting, so little security, that there's so much crime, so much rape, so much suicides, so many problems, that the MPs are like, oh yeah, okay, another one. They can't even think straight. And that's exactly what happened with Anthony Swafford. It was a big mistake. It was a big mistake. Because where is Lieutenant General Bernabe or Major General Clem Cowart or General McConville, General Garrett, teaching our soldiers no soldier left behind, teaching them the ethos, the Medal of Honor ethos, teaching them an army of one, teaching them esprit de corps. No, we have Richard as the guidon bearer. My dad said, oh my gosh, there's a huge problem, because Richard was telling me that they were hiding the guidon and he couldn't find the guidon. And, my dad's like horrified. Horrified. He goes, there's no esprit de corps. They're playing practical jokes with the guidon. He was absolutely horrified. And if anyone thinks that we can stand as a country without discipline and think that we can be undisciplined and still get all the benefits and all the glory of discipline, you're mistaken. You're mistaken. Here is we have mountains of proof, y'all, and this is so small. I'm going to have to use my but it's just talking about the heart family problems over and over and over again. And as I don't want to give too much. And this is so convoluted that when people ask me to explain my son's case to them, they're like, wait a minute, you're making me dizzy. Wait a minute, I don't understand this. You mean the VA, the CID, the IG, the command, the Department of Justice, Department of State, Department, hopefully not the Department of State. Hopefully not, because they confirmed that the FBI were there in Mexico looking for Richard's remains. And so hopefully not. But the Department of Justice for sure, the FBI for sure, the CID, the VA now, are all compromised. They're not vetting. We don't have security on Fort Bliss. We have a security breach on Fort Bliss. We have security breach after security breach after security breach. And that's why, because it's such a mess, maybe that's why they don't want the officer of the court to enter Fort Bliss, because he knows the law. He knows the regs. He knows what's right and what's wrong. Lots of reports here that, and a testimony. Here we have a testimony of a specialist at Fort Bliss, and that happened 3/7/2020. I'm going to read through that. And of course, just like the allegations over and over again in that. So I'll read through these, this new information, and I'll share them as we go tomorrow. But we'll have to make another criminal complaint tomorrow, another letter to the general, and just know that the allegations are not mine. We have a key witness. I don't know what happened to Richard. I know what happened to Richard according to all the evidence and the witnesses, and I don't know what happened in the Hart family. I wasn't there, but I know what Leilani Hart alleges. I know that she has Iolanthia, Lolanthia, Lorian, so, and I know what she alleges, and it is vile and vulgar, and lots of fraud, waste, and abuse, and it's starting to get into the financial part of it. And we had information, but we just need people to come clean, and for people to do the right thing. And right now, there's a lot of people just trying to CYA, sorry, CYA. And, where's Richard? Who covered for Richard? No, we have information that he was forcibly removed. He was surrounded. He was assaulted. and tortured and murdered, and somehow this Van Buren Avenue plays a role, and his body was processed. There had to be someone that knew what they were doing, and that he was put in different locations by a van, by a person wearing a motorcycle hat. Boxes are involved. And, you would think that the Army, who Rob served for 30 years honorably, willingly, um, would be able to honor our FOIAs, our open records requests, especially from Judge Robert Shook, who you have to realize he presided over the Asia Graham case with Christian Alvarado, which is very interesting. Some things on that is interesting. And he presided over, he would be the one to do the warrants. He would be the one to do the probable causes. Don't forget, this is a dual case because our home was searched without a warrant. They haven't produced a warrant. I will be the first one to tell you. But Robert Shook, Colonel Robert Shook, Judge Robert Shook, who now PCS'd suddenly, and he had made roots there. He had made plans there. He showed that he had made plans there to stay in El Paso, but he, just suddenly PCS'd. He, without responding to our open records request of these warrants, of these probable cause affidavits, because he would have to issue those to pick up Richard's remains, to do the autopsies, to arrest people, to search homes, to search devices, and all kinds of things. And, we have questions about Richard's car now. But, that's what I'm saying. There's so many fronts here. And you would think that they wouldn't put us through this, that they have the agencies, that they would vet their agencies, get people in there that wanted to honor their oath, that did take the oath and would want to honor the oath, to honor every one of our service members, every one of them, by doing their duty, working as an army, right? As a military force. So, but that is not what's happening. So we will ask all of you to write a letter. We've been asking all of you, and that's still, that request is still out there, to write Major General Eisenhower, James Eisenhower, to tell him he has been wrongly briefed. He needs to vet the information. He needs to vet the leaders of these agencies. He needs to remove the ban from from find Richard Halliday. Richard Halliday's key witness. Lift that ban. Don't impede justice. Don't deny us due process. Don't deny us our right to investigate, because the CID and Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe and his whole staff told us we had to bring them leads. We had to do the investigation. because they weren't going to tell us that our son was a whistleblower. They weren't going to tell us that our son's file was tampered with, was scrubbed. They weren't going to tell us that our witnesses were being tampered with. They weren't going to do that. We had to find that all out ourselves. And we have to find our son ourselves. Team Find Richard Halliday. And that's exactly what we're doing. So thank you, everybody, so much for your patience. And there's a lot more because some people want to run too. They want to I forgot to mention that, but they want to liquidate everything they have and run. Why did they want to do that? Think about it. So we have, like I said, it's only the tip of the iceberg. We have mountains of information. And I just want to thank you all, say a prayer for us, because part of that criminal complaint was the threats, was the intimidation, was the harassment. And if Leilani Hart is right, I mean, she said she woke up with an illegal gun, a illegally purchased weapon, illegally possessed, and then placed to her head. Now, when you get someone brazen to come on to Find Richard Halliday and say they've had enough of me, to threaten me, that doesn't do him too good. That doesn't do him too good. And so, yes, we have been threatened. We have been threatened a lot during these 3 years. We've been intimidated a lot. We've asked for help with that. We've been denied help for that. We've been denied all the help, right? All the help. And the help that they showcased, like the staged Task Force Find Richard Halliday, was just that. Was just a fraud, was just another example of leadership operating outside of the law and operating with fraud, waste, and abuse. Absolutely. Out of uniform. Out of uniform, they came to that meeting with 15 plus agencies out of uniform. And this is, I know there's so many fronts. Lieutenant General Donna Martin, who was there, cross-legged in a chair in the middle of the room, out of uniform, not telling us that our son was a whistleblower, not giving us any information. She was CID. Now she's IG. She's IG. Just to let you know. So, yeah, say a prayer. If that's not, to me, that's harassment. But then again, I was at the meeting. And anyway, so thank you, everybody. Say a prayer, and we will be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with more breaking news. I already have the breaking news, and I'm sure, and we're not even at tomorrow yet. So I'll be back tomorrow. God bless you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.